Welcome to The Sideshow.
All right, welcome to another edition of The Sideshow. Today, Mike is going to be leading the charge. So, Mike, why don't you let everybody know what we're going to be talking about today?
Thanks, Mark. Today we're going to be talking about a very interesting artist, in my opinion, and that's Ry Cooder. And he's not a musician that achieved massive popularity, but he's a guy that's been around for a long time. Ultimately, I think kind of became best known for composing soundtracks
Mhm.
to movies. But he also recorded albums primarily during the 1970s, just solo records that he was putting out. And one of those, which came out in 1978, is called Bop Till You Drop. And today we're going to talk about side one of that album. And I mentioned that Ry Cooder is kind of an interesting character, and the history of his career, kind of leading up to the '70s when he started just putting out his own solo albums, is really pretty interesting.
Yeah.
He's a guitar player, and while he plays a number of other stringed instruments, banjo, mandolin, and whatnot, he's primarily known as a guitarist,
Mm-hmm.
instrumentally. And, he knocked around earlier in the 60s. He played with a number of individuals, including Taj Mahal, the blues artist, and also Ed Cassidy, who ultimately became the drummer in the band Spirit. And, he was relatively recognizable back in those days because he had kind of a Kojak style bald head.
Mm-hmm.
And so was different than a lot of the long hairs that he was playing with.
Yep.
And eventually, Ry Cooder was playing with Captain Beefheart, and
Weird.
who was a strange character, and
Yeah.
specifically Captain Beefheart's, whose real name is Don Van Vliet. But in any case, Captain Beefheart's 1967 album "Safe as Milk," and Captain Beefheart was gearing up to perform that year at the Monterey Pop Festival, which
Mm-hmm.
became kind of an iconic event in the history of live performance in rock music. Um, uh, uh, but apparently, doing a gig, very shortly before the Monterey Pop Festival, Don Van Vliet on stage engaged in some behavior that apparently Ry Cooder found so weird that he declined to continue performing with Captain Beefheart. And
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know whether Captain Beefheart went on to perform at the Monterey Pop Festival, but Ry Cooder wasn't there because he wasn't going to play anymore with Captain Beefheart.
I mean, that's kind of weird. I mean, if you're performing with, I mean, if you listen to any Captain Beefheart, he's weird to start with, right? So you already have a bar that's pretty high. It must have been really weird for Ry Cooder to say I'm done with this.
Well, I don't think it's the music, and I don't know all the
Well,
details, but it was behavior that was so beyond the pale, apparently. Whatever Captain, and I mean, people want to get on the internet, they can find out about this. But in any case, um, uh, Ry Cooder went on. He performed. I mentioned Taj Mahal earlier. He played
hmm
guitar on Taj Mahal's debut album, which is a relatively straightforward blues album with kind of a Taj Mahal feel to it, that was released in 1968. Um, uh, and he also played with the Stones
Mm-hmm.
in 1968 and 69. Most notably, he played mandolin on the studio version of "Love in Vain."
Mm-hmm.
The live version was on the "Get Your Yayas Out" album, but the studio version was on "Let It Bleed."
Mm-hmm.
And it's a beautiful rendition of the song. Ry Cooder plays mandolin,
Mm-hmm.
and he hung out with the Stones as well. There's an album that was released in 1972 called "Jamming with Edward," and kind of the urban legend was that some guys were hanging around in the studio, I think during the recording of "Let It Bleed," and Keith Richards was elsewhere, and they were
Mm-hmm.
kind of just they were looking for something to do while they were waiting for Keith, and they were just jamming,
Mm-hmm.
and so and some of the tapes were rolling, so they were recorded, not in a particularly pristine way, but they were
Yeah.
they were nevertheless recorded. And this was Charlie Watts playing drums, Bill Wyman playing bass, Mick Jagger was singing, and then Ry Cooder was playing guitar,
Mm-hmm.
and then Nicky Hopkins, who was a piano player, who played a lot with the Stones, was playing piano. And for people who are really into the Stones, that's worth checking out. It's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of a sloppy, impromptu jam. So I mean, if you're looking for any revelatory Stones type material, that ain't it. But just good, funky, bluesy jamming, heavy piano, because Edward was Nicky Hopkins' nickname, but
Mm-hmm.
Ry Cooder played on that. Eventually in 1970, he played on Randy Newman's 12 Songs album, which is a very well regarded album in Randy Newman's output of
Mm-hmm.
music. And also he played the band Little Feat, which is a band that I very much enjoy.
Yeah.
He played guitar on two songs on their debut album, which was released in 1971. One was "Willin'," which is perhaps Lowell George and Little Feat's signature song, and he
Mm-hmm.
also played on a kind of a blues rave up, 44 Blues, How Many More Years, kind of a medley on that album. So he had done some shit, um, uh, uh, by the early 70s, and was a relatively well versed performer and musician before he put out any of his own solo material. His first solo album was a eponymously titled album that was released in 1970, just called Ry Cooder.
Mm-hmm.
And then through the 70s, he released some more albums. His second album was called Into the Purple Valley, followed by an album called Boomer's Story. Uh, then he released what some critics consider his best solo album, which is called Paradise and Lunch, uh, and uh,
Yep.
and that was followed up with an album called Chicken Skin Music. And by this point, by the point of those two albums, he'd kind of formed his style. It was a relatively spare style, guitar oriented, but not guitar dominated.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the single best word to describe the material that he played was traditional music,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's older folk songs, older blues songs, R&B material, whatever. Traditional music, I think, is the best kind of label to
Mm-hmm.
put on it. And chicken skin music, the style has some similarities to what we're going to talk about and hear on "Bop Till You Drop," uh, uh, and uh, and is kind of, I look at that as, besides "Bop Till You Drop," one of my, I had that on vinyl. and along with Paradise and Lunch, and listened to it. I put Chicken Skin Music on more regularly because I thought it was better.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, After that, there were a couple more releases that I haven't taken the time to immerse myself in, and then in 1979, Cooder released "Bop Till You Drop," and one of the unique distinctions for the album "Bop Till You Drop" is it was the very first sort of rock album that was recorded entirely digitally. Used digital recording process than an analog tape recording process, and that enhanced in my opinion, that enhanced the quality of the sound in a way that was unlike rock sound that was coming out at that time. And
Hmm.
there were certain musicians who put a lot of effort into the quality of their sound during the 70s. Prior
Hmm.
to this, I mean, we've done a podcast on Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon, which is indisputably a sonic masterpiece.
Yeah.
And artists like Frank Zappa were very concerned about the quality of sound on the records that they were putting out during the 70s. But this is the first digital recording, and in a little bit when we get to talking about the songs on this side, we can expand on it. But it's clean. It's a
Yeah.
clean sound, and it's a sound where you can hear and and see the space between the different instruments in a way that's different than a lot of recordings that were made, in the 70s. Uh, and so, up to the point of this record, I mean, there's, you could pick out the different things that Ry Cooder was doing over the course of his career, and you could talk about it all day.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, up to this point, that's kind of a good thumbnail. I mean, eventually, like I think it was 1994, Ry Cooder released a best of, the very best of Ry Cooder, which is called River Rescue, which is a very good representation of Ry Cooder's solo material. And that includes three of the four songs on the side that we're going to talk about. Uh, and then a couple years later, or in the mid '90s, there somewhere, Ry Cooder released a two CD, a double CD release called "Music by Ry Cooder," which is all from soundtrack material that he'd done.
Hmm.
And so, in addition to this album that we're going to be talking about today, if anyone is curious or more interested in hearing some Ry Cooder, those are two things that I would direct them to, in addition to what we're talking about, along with the albums Paradise and Lunch and Chicken Skin Music.
Well, it's I always find it interesting to listen to the material that is put on their own individual albums by these real studio heavyweights. I mean, Ry Cooder was incredibly respected as a guitar player. I mean, you listed off a number of people that he has performed with. I mean, the list goes on. Eric Clapton and Van Morrison. And I mean, these are, he played with a lot of people. He finds himself on, a number of very high ranked on a number of the greatest guitarists of all time type lists from the Rolling Stones and these other places. In fact, I would argue about as high as anyone that is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame of their own right. Right? He has got this level of respect within the music industry. So I always love to sit and okay, what would these guys, if they can do their own stuff, what would they do? Which is one of the fun parts about listening to the music of these types of musicians. And it is key. You brought up, the first digital recording that as far as the album that we're going to talk about. I mean, that opened up so many things. I mean, digital recording and automation and editing and looping. I mean, the types of things that are very standard nowadays would be impossible without digital recording. And he wasn't looking at the automation piece of it. He really liked the notion that whatever sound we're able to make, to put together, to create in the studio, that's exactly what you're going to hear out the other side. That's what he really enjoyed about it. And I think he was very good at creating that sound, to get what was in his head out into the instrument, and then through this digital piece, he knows the audience is going to hear exactly that. That's not always been the struggle with musicians. I mean, we just not too long ago had a podcast about the album Nebraska by Bruce Springsteen. And the problem was he couldn't get it in the studio the way that he wanted it, the way that he really, thought, the way that his demo tapes put together. So it's kind of an interesting type of thing. You've got to be able to get there. And Ry Cooder, here's a guy. He was playing the guitar at the age of 3, and moving forward, one of these kind of, just kind of savant almost musicians that, that came up, played a lot of different stringed instruments. And I think that helped him hone his style. He did spend a lot of his first like band work was playing the banjo. And one of the things that people have pointed out, I'm not an expert on the guitar, but, things that you can read about, that he would take techniques that were normally used by banjo players to get particular sounds out of the banjo, which is a slightly different instrument than the guitar, but he would use those same techniques on a guitar, and it created a unique type of sound and style that, that we're going to hear a little bit of that today. It's a slightly different way of sliding on the guitar, a slightly different way of picking or tuning the instrument that he had learned from those days, and it created kind of a unique style and some really beautiful music.
The and you could, it wouldn't be outrageous to characterize him as kind of the Mozart of the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be a little pretentious, but the point that you're making is correct. I mean, over the course of his career, he used the guitar in different ways, in different settings, to create music that in different genres that had different feels, and he was able to do all of it incredibly effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he's an important artist, in my opinion. That's worth talking about it. And it also kind of explains why he may have not achieved the sort of massive success that a lot of artists do, because he was focused on the music
Yeah.
that he was producing, not on pleasing an audience or fitting
Cranking out hits.
Yeah, that just wasn't his thing. His satisfaction came elsewhere. Although he did achieve something almost like popular success, because in the late 80s, he played on an album by John Hyatt called Bring the Family. And the drummer for on that album was the same drummer who plays on this album.
Mm-hmm.
And the other musicians were Nick Lowe and Jim Keltner and John Hyatt and Ry Cooder. That was the band, that basically the musicians that performed the music that was recorded on John Hyatt's album titled Bring the Family. In the early 90s, that same collection of musicians, and they named the group Little Village, put out an album, which I picked up on CD. Not as good as John Hyatt's Bring the Family, but they performed on the Tonight Show, and for example, and it might have been when Johnny Carson was still on.
Yeah.
But that was about as close as it, at least as far as I can tell, that he really ever became to being a rock star of the traditional type. And after that, he kind of went back to doing the things that he was good at, which is stuff like this album. The album cover, we can take a look at. It's a single album. You can see there's a sticker on there that says Rock's first all digital recording. I picked up this copy used at Wax Stacks in Milwaukee in the mid '80s. You can see that it's got on the back the promotional, not for sale thing. The back, it's just got
Yeah.
it's just got the list of the songs
Yeah.
and the musicians that play on each of the songs. There's no gatefold or there's nothing on the dust sleeve, and so it's basically, like I say, it's just a picture of Ry Cooder holding a Fender Telecaster guitar. The primary band for purposes of this album was Ry Cooder playing guitar. Jim Keltner, who I mentioned earlier, played drums. Tim Drummond played bass, and Tim Drummond played with Neil Young previously. He played on I think he played on some of the songs on Zuma. He played on Time Fades Away. So that neck of the woods for Neil Young. And then also David Lindley plays guitar on all the songs that we're going to listen to. All four of the Ry Cooder, Jim Keltner, Tim Drummond, and David Lindley play on all the songs we're going to talk about. An artist named Milt Holland played percussion on the second, third, and fourth songs we're going to talk about. And then otherwise, besides that, there's background vocals is really about the only other people that perform. And so that is kind of the background for this album. The first, and as I said, we're going to talk about side one. And the first song on side one is a cover song. And all of these are covers, I believe, except for perhaps the instrumental, which is track number 4.
That's a cover as well.
Well, there you have it.
Yeah.
So they're all cover songs, and the opening track is Little Sister. And Little Sister was originally performed by Elvis Presley and I believe that was in the early 60s, not in the 50s. But that's a song that many people may have heard, Elvis's version of Little Sister. And at some point after this album came out, Robert Plant recorded a version of this with the band Rockpile, which included Nick Lowe. It included Dave Edmunds, who played. He had the song "I Hear You Knocking," but you can't. That was him. But they had a band called Rockpile, and so this was a kind of a standard rock and roll number, and it's a fairly straightforward song. And why don't we listen to the first couple of minutes, and we can continue talking about it after.
Sounds good.
All right, so there you have it. I mean, it's a relatively simple, straightforward song, and it's also a good illustration of what I think the term I used earlier was it's spare. They're not the
Hmm.
guitars don't aren't you're not getting hit in the face with guitars here. But if you listen carefully, there's two guitar players. There's Ry Cooder and David Lindley. And David Lindley, it's worth mentioning. I mean, he was kind of a big shot on the West Coast in terms of session guitar playing. Um, he had put out around this same time a solo album called El Rayo X, and it found its way onto the radio because he did a cover version of Mercury Blues, which had
Hmm.
several years earlier been on one of Steve Miller's first big
Yep.
albums in the 70s, Fly Like an Eagle. And he also played a lot with Jackson Brown.
Hmm.
And on Jackson Brown's Running on Empty album,
Yeah.
he's one of the guitar players. And also at the very end of that album, where they're doing the "Won't You Stay" just a little bit
Yeah.
longer, and one of the singers has a really high voice.
Yeah.
That's David Lindley.
Yep.
And
That's
and
a quick plug. We did an episode on Running on Empty in season
we
one. So
did
anybody, we
worth
we
listening.
we went in depth on that side. So people should go back and check that out.
So in any case, the point I'm trying to make is that we got two heavyweight guitar players here.
Yeah.
And what they chose to do for purposes of this song and basically this album was to not cram the guitar sound down our throats or bang it into our eardrums, but just really played some sort of subtle, sophisticated stuff that you sort of have to kind of really listen to appreciate how it fits together. And I think it's very effective. And the digital recording that was used makes it easier to appreciate the subtlety and just the not as heavy a touch that these guitar players chose to use for this music.
Yeah. And first of all, this is a great example of, I said number one, the most interesting thing about these albums is really trying to see what artists like this, decide they want to perform if they get to have their own records. And the second piece is there's clearly something that they hear in these songs that makes them want to play them and then play them in your way. I mean, Ry Cooder was also known for not only being a very talented guitar player, but that he would take these old traditional. You said he was really into traditional type music. Whether that be calypso or gospel or country or blues, R&B, early rock and roll. That he would take and he would hear something, and that's clearly what he would amplify on his own versions of the song. He would rarely take a song and just redo it the same way that it was originally done. He would reorchestrate and draw on the chords or the sound that was a part of the song that he liked. So that's always interesting to listen to. And it's a very complex kind of song to listen to what's going on in the song. And then you listen to the words. And I mean, pretty simple, straightforward song, here it is. It's like this guy's head over heels for this girl who basically screws him over. And he's like, maybe I can ball her, her younger sister. Right. So he basically switches gears and now he's going after the younger sister, but it's really done just well. Not only the guitar and musical, but I think the vocal arrangements on this really come out well as well. It's a nice song to listen to. You're not jumping up and down and clapping type rock and roll, but boy, you hear the way that the guitar is coming out. It's his own style. You can hear you can hear some Mark Knopfler type, like uniqueness, like that range of kind of his guitar style. So it's very unique as his own kind of sound, and it goes well with this particular song. This is, to me, is just a fun song to listen to.
It's and I mean, you're right about the fact that you know Ry Cooder's artistry was not lyrics. That wasn't what he did really.
Yeah.
And so he'd take songs that he liked, and so the artistry behind what he was doing wasn't lyrically based. And that's not to say that the lyrics were not meaningful
Yeah.
or weren't sophisticated or good artful lyrics, but that wasn't his end of the process.
Mm-hmm.
And so I agree with that. And the sound, this is the sort of music that you could listen to in a lot of, or you could put on in a lot of different settings, and it wouldn't alienate a lot of
Yeah.
listeners, because as good as it is, it's 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 not hard edge. It's not the
Yeah.
thing that some rock music does that your older generations just couldn't stomach. This really doesn't do it.
Yeah.
It's it's very adult music.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's not often that you find a song where you'd say, this you could put the song on at a party, and then there's normally a different set of music that you would say you can put this on at a dinner party. And this song would work in both of those types of settings, right? It's
yeah.
it's not going to put you to sleep. It's going to keep yet at the same time, it's a nice sounding song.
Well, and I using the term adult is maybe a little risky, because in the late '70s, sort of rock oriented music that was a little restrained and kind of more adult, was labeled. Some of it was labeled as yacht rock. Stuff like Pablo Cruz and
Yeah.
Little River Band and stuff like that. And this, and I'm not knocking those two bands,
Yeah.
but this ain't that.
No, it's not.
Um,
But I would say sometimes people will put a band like Steely Dan and classify that
sure.
as yacht rock. And I would say this is, if we're going to put it anywhere in that area, this is closer to the Steely Dan type
Um,
stuff than more so than Little River Band.
I, I would agree with that, but I think that a lot of Ry Cooder fans and probably a lot of Steely Dan fans would suggest that, yeah, these are very different
Yeah,
type of music. But
no doubt, no doubt.
I appreciate what you're saying there. Um, so so that's how we start out the side with and this is about as commercially successful as Ry Cooder ever got. This song, I
Hmm.
think, was his, as far as getting on the radio and stuff like
Yeah,
that. As far as his solo material is concerned, I think it's about as successful as he got, because it was a known song. I mean, when you got
yeah,
before you did it, Elvis did it, and after you did it, Robert Plant,
yeah,
had a version of it when he was still fairly popular on the heels of the dissolution of Led Zeppelin. That's saying something.
yeah.
So.
And that's one of the reasons. I mean, even if people aren't necessarily familiar with this, or even specifically this song, they may be thinking, I've heard that please, please, please. There's a familiarity to it, even if you may not, be overly familiar with this particular version of the song or the song itself.
It's a catchier version than
Yeah,
Elvis did.
yeah,
I mean, and Elvis his is the classic version,
yeah,
and it's not so much to say that this is better, but it's catchier.
yep.
It's more hooky. It sort of draws you in a little better, in my opinion. So,
Hmm.
a strong opener, in my opinion. Let's move on to track number 2, which is called "Go Home Girl." And this is a ballad, kind of a Tex-Mex sort of feel to it. And why don't we play a little bit of the beginning, and then we can continue to talk about it after.
Well, me and Frank, we're the best of friends, and our friendship will never end. But it would hurt him so for him to know that I'm in love with his girlfriend. Now the love of a girl and the love of a friend are two things you can't compare. And though my heart will ache, I will let it break, 'cause I know that it just ain't fair. So go on home, girl, let's call it a night. You better go home, girl, this just ain't right. But before you go, I want you to know that I love you, yes I do. And though it breaks my heart for us to part, still I know Frank loves you too.
All right. A guy has got the hots for his friend Frank's, his best friend's girlfriend.
Yeah.
And there you have it. And you know, I think I mentioned before the clip that this had sort of a Tex-Mex kind of feel to it. You know, you can picture, you know, like a street dance in Del Rio, Texas, you know, 50 years ago. And, you know, these people kind of, you know, and these three people, the singer and Frank and the girl, all just kind of interacting, and this sort of music in the background. It's very pleasant, and it's and very traditional in the context that I'm trying to put it into. Very different in feel and tone than Little Sister, but just kind of that same spare but sophisticated arrangement where the guitars are sort of content to be in the background and the sentiments to kind of percolate up to the top of the, you know, the front of the music. You could dance a slow song to this, but you could also do kind of a more fandango type dance,
Sure.
maybe even two. I think it's a very nice track.
And I also I think that the theme of the song is a little bit more complex than just that he's got the hots for his friend's girlfriend. I think it's that the friend's girlfriends might has the hots for him as well. You know, it's like this isn't like this was the love that I can never have type song. This is like they're in the back seat of the car and he's thinking to himself, do I go down or do I honor my friend? Right. You know, and he makes the call that his friend is more important. So he needs this girl. He needs this girl to go home. Which, you know, it's a little bit more complex than there's just this girl I love. He's facing a question here, and kind of nice. He decides he's going to choose the friend. Be better for him. Be better for her too.
Well, and you have accurately expanded on, you know, the significance of the lyrics, very well, and that's sort of melancholy sentiment of.
Yeah.
Boy, I'd like to go down this road, but I just can't do it to Frank, and so I'm not going to.
Yeah.
And it would be easier for me to stick to that position if you would go home.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it's about. And that's that is a very real, dare I say, traditional conundrum that people find themselves in, and that have very real emotional consequences for people.
Yep.
And this song is a good. I assume that fact had something to do with his wish to perform this song on one of his albums, and it comes across very well, and kind of you can feel I have an opportunity that I want to take but there's a countervailing emotion that's stopping me. And while I think I'm making the right decision, I'm kind of sad about it and regretful that my feelings and desires are going to go unfulfilled because of it.
Yep.
The song manages to kind of capture all that in the way that it's sung and the way that the music is presented.
Yeah, and this is the the situation that from the perspective of the guy, right? You can just picture yourself in this situation, because if you surround this with the fact of, it's like, this guy hasn't been able to find a girl maybe for a year. Things have been dry as a bone in that particular area. He finally is interacting with someone, and there seems to be a spark of connection, and it's his fucking best friend's girlfriend, right? It's so there's some, you could just kind of, having been in difficult situations with relationships in the past, both the months of dryness, and then is this the right thing to do, or whatever. You can almost just picture yourself kind of just what you said. The only solution here is for you to go home, and maybe we'll be able to get through this.
The I've spent a fair amount of time focusing on Ry Cooder's guitar prowess, and I also mentioned David Lindley, the second guitarist that plays on this music, his guitar prowess, and there's a relatively decent guitar break in this song that continues in this sort of adult, restrained, using subtlety more so than volume or anything. And let's listen to some of it before we conclude our conversation on the other side.
Sounds good.
Me and Frank been friends for so long, and our friendship is really strong. He give me his car to go for a ride. He never knows how long I'll be gone. Well, I'm trying to forget all the things that we've done, while Frank is just waiting back home. Girl, you can't go right with me anymore. That's the way it's got to be from now on.
All right, I would just characterize that as just an incredibly pleasant, if not beautiful, bit of music that kind of fits in with that sort of mild sadness of knowing that I can't follow my heart in this
Yep.
situation. I think it does a nice job, and it has that sort of tactful Tex-Mex sort of feel to it as well.
Yeah. And kind of, unlike, we talked a little bit about the first track on this side, being that it's almost like the mood of the music doesn't really match kind of the, more straightforward message of the songs. That's not the case here. I think that it really does kind of this way of capturing that feeling of kind of lost opportunities or dilemma or just impossible things that you may want. I mean, it does a good job of capturing that, and aligns with the spirit of what you're hearing as well. I think very, very well done. And Ry Cooder, in the way that he's wanted to present this, just does that pretty well.
And I mean, and Ry Cooder's next album, I believe, was called Borderline, and there was certainly in that song some Tex-Mex
Oh yeah.
type issues and whatnot. And so I think it's a type of music, not unlike say Linda Ronstadt was involved. Her because of her ancestry, she was very interested in Mexican traditional music. And after her heyday in the '70s and the early '80s, a lot of the music, or a significant portion of what she put out, was traditional Mexican music. And
Yeah.
I think that Ry Cooder, at least at this point in his career, was sort of taken with a certain amount of that kind of music, and the songs sort of tactfully reflects that.
And Linda Ronstadt being another performer that Ry Cooder had the opportunity to do some session work with as well, probably for those types of reasons.
All right. Well, let's move on to the third track, and this the song is called "The Very Thing That Makes You Rich Makes Me Poor."
Mm-hmm.
And what he's talking about is what the lyrics of the song are talking about is the fact that certain women have the ability to persuade the men that are around them or with them to give them their money, and a lot of that is their either their sex appeal or their desirability, or just whatever charm that they happen to possess. When it rises to that level, that it's the sort of thing that is going to make a man willing to give her his money.
Yeah.
That's what the song is about.
And there are, we've talked a little bit about, men either attempting to start a relationship or attempting to cast off a relationship in the first two songs. I think the message of this song is there are types of relationships that will become a significant outflow of financial resources from you if you want to maintain them. And that's the situation that they have encountered here, or the singer has encountered here, and not just to the point of this is expensive, but it's gonna make you poor in doing this. Before though, that's and the kind of the sound and feel of the lyrics is very it's kind of a down pushing. I wouldn't want to say like downtrodden. Blues type of vocals that's there. It kind of drags on like a march, like you're being marched into poorness. But this is a song, this is an example of before the lyrics start. This song in particular on this side, if as the guitar that opens the song up, you don't hear any of that type of feel to it. This is a great part if you've got some headphones or can listen in a quiet room. Just listen to the way that this song starts. And you will say to yourself, the guitar is a beautiful instrument. It just has a beautiful way of just kind of rolling into the rhythm, and ultimately into the lyrics and into the song. It's just beautiful the way this thing starts.
And let's listen to a clip from the song to kind of try and illustrate what you're talking about. And now the song starts out, the first minute or so is fairly slow, and the first kind of set of lyrics come in there, and the separation of the instruments through the digital recording is very, very good, very well done. And so I agree with your suggestion that this is a good headphone song, but I kind of want to skip past most of that. It's a relatively slow beginning. And when the song kind of picks this, and listen to a clip from that portion of the song, because this This is a more upbeat song than the previous song,
Yeah.
and it's very different. But it's very different from Little Sister. This is a more funky R&B type
Yeah.
song, and it maintains the what I'm calling the spare guitar style that Ry Cooder and also David Lindley are using here, but it's got a little bit more of an edge to it than I think either of the two previous songs. Why don't we listen to this clip, and then we'll continue discussing after.
Okay.
Make you the very thing that makes her rich will make you poor. That's right. Well, I put you behind the wheel of a 2 cent a quarter. Yes, I did. Had you living like a rich man's daughter. Yes, I did. I told it while you was living high on the hog. You had me down here, stuffed in like a dog. Well, the very thing that made you rich made me poor. The very thing that made you rich made me poor. Don't you never, ever make such a bad mistake.
All right, kind of funky. I mean, I don't know. The listeners heard the lyrics from those verses, but and so I don't know how much we need to elaborate on that aspect of the song. But this is, I mean, I think it is genuinely funky
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
song.
I'd agree. And you get, as I was talking about before, as I was listening to the beginning of the song, I almost get a little bit thrown off as it moves from that opening guitar into the vocals. But they bring it together, right? With that. And as that music, funky, I think, is a great way to describe it. And ends up just it becomes kind of draws you in, the song, to be able to kind of seems to upbeat something somewhat from the beginning of the song.
And it's kind of a warning song, where, and I mean, and the first lyrics, which were not heard on the clip that was just played, but the very first, my father told me lying on his bed of death, just kind of warning him, you got to watch out for those women, kind of thing, and
Yeah.
or at least certain
Yeah.
certain women. And then when the song proper starts up, which was played in the
Yeah.
clip, it's kind of got I think a warning kind of quality to it. You just, young man, you be careful,
Mm-hmm.
or else you'll be sadder and wiser. But just very engaging, and it's not. It's it's consistent with what you were referring to earlier. Music that you could play at a party and at a dinner party.
Yeah.
Even though it's a little more, a little more funky and a little more, I don't know if danceable is really the right word,
Mm-hmm.
but it still has that restraint, that kind of less is more feel to it, that sort of expands its accessibility to more kind of social environments than some louder, faster, and harder music would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
just it's and a good example of, from the positioning on the side. There's been kind of a progression from the first song on to this one where it's kind of a little more oomph with each song. I guess would be the way it is. So you kind of getting drawn a little bit more into the album as we get to round out three-quarters of the side.
and yes, there's another track from
Oh, yeah.
this song that I'd like to play because the kind of the coda of this track, it involves kind of a repeated set of words, and it's about as hard a rocking as you're going to hear on this album. And rocking isn't even the right word, but it's got the most edge, the most upbeat. And let's give it a listen, and then we'll continue talking after.
Okay.
All right, so they kind of bring that one home with a little bit more of a bang than we've heard so far on this record, and even though it stays in that kind of restrained sort of spare arrangement that I keep referring to, it kind of it moves along and was worth sort of playing for the listeners to kind of give you a full feel for what this song is all about. But uh, I mentioned the very best of Ry Cooder CD that came out in 1994. In addition to Little Sister, this one's on it too. I mean, so
Yeah.
this is a song that Ry Cooder regarded as one of the better songs from his solo albums, and I think it's a good one on this side as well.
Sure.
So in any case, let's that brings us to the final track, which it's all instrumental. It was written by someone besides the musicians playing on this, and which are the four musicians I mentioned, and then also the percussionist Milt Holland. And this is a very pleasant, non-threatening, tranquil, uh, sentimental instrumental.
Well,
Uh,
it's just real quick. This is a great example of what I was talking about a little bit earlier about clearly Ry Cooder sees or feels something in a song, and that's what he takes with it. This was a cover. It was originally done by Ike and Tina Turner. On there. It was called, it's going to work out. And this song is called I Think It's Going to Work Out, but it was the same song. And when you hear Ike and Tina Turner's version of it, you can hear what we're going to hear as we talk about this song in there somewhere. But it is it's a very different version and orchestration of this song.
Yeah.
So just an interesting thing to pick out about what was when Ry Cooder was listening and obviously enjoying. I'm assuming that's why he decided to do his own version of it. What did he hear in there that caught his attention? That put a spark in his mind as he was listening to the music, because I think that's what we're going to hear now, right? Is what he drew from it.
All right. Well, and the precise title of the song on this album is "I Think It's Going to Work Out Fine." It is the title of the song. But as you say, let's give some of it a listen, and then we'll continue our discussion after. All right. Well, that's only a portion of the song, but the first 2 minutes or so of the song is really, that is a good representation of what you're going to hear. And when my wife and I were married, there was a rehearsal dinner that was put on by my parents. And one of the things that my wife and I did to do at that rehearsal dinner was we put together a bunch of slides from the time both of us were little kids through our growing up, pictures of the families and friends, and then pictures of after we'd met and we're hanging out together. And it was about, you were there, Mark. It was about 15, maybe 20 minutes to do that. And since everyone was going to be sitting there just quietly looking at the slides, Beth and I put together a tape that had 4 songs on it. There was a song by Van Morrison. There was an instrumental, kind of a sentimental instrumental by Stanley Jordan, the jazz guitar player. And one of the songs was this.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because it kind of at the time and still it just kind of captured that sort of touching emotional sentiment that we were trying to convey with this slideshow that
Yeah.
we put together. So that's how I responded to this song when I was listening to it back in those days, because it sort of gave me that a touching
Yeah.
sentimental, or sentimental may not be the right word, but it touched on a sentiment that is just pleasant. And I mean, look, I mean, at that time, all four of our grandparents were still alive.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they were there, and I'm sure that
Yeah.
as they were listening to it, they were thinking, "This is nice."
Yeah, and it is nice.
Nice.
It's a really nice tune. This is more dinner party than beer party.
Yeah,
What you have here, but it really is. This is another example. I used it on the song before, but if you just sit and listen to this, it's like, wow, this guy makes the guitar sound beautiful. It just the way that it rolls. It's a different type of style than what you hear from a lot of people that are out there, playing guitar. And it's put together and pulled together and orchestrated just in a way, and the end product is just really nice to listen to. And when you're talking about you've come home from a hard day or something like that, and you just need to to clear the brain cells out and just think peace. This is a great song for that.
yeah. I mean, it's sort of, if you don't think things are going to work out fine, sit down and listen to this.
Yeah.
And afterward, after this is like a 4 minutes and
Yeah.
4 or 5 minute song. I mean, if after those 4 or 5 minutes, you're going to be more likely to think that things might work out fine than you were before. It's just and that is a you know uh, this is the kind of sound and just the way the performance of this track. It's the sort of thing that after you listen to it, you just feel better
Mm-hmm.
than you did before you heard it, to
Yep.
some degree. Now, that doesn't mean that throwing a track of music is gonna make your life better. But if you want to just feel better for a little while, this is going to
Can't
do it.
hurt.
And it also shows just the way that two serious guitar players who have chosen to not, play louder, faster, harder edged rock guitar, but are just going to sort of explore the sounds that you can make with a guitar. It's just really a good it's a good example of that, because
Yeah.
it is. I think that you're absolutely right, that when you listen to this song and some of the other songs uh, uh, on this side as well, it really does illustrate in different ways, because we've had kind of a mixture of different. We had more of kind of like a straight up, kind of R&B rock and roll song with Little Sister, kind of a Tex-Mex ballad with Go Home Girl, sort
Hmm.
of a more funky R&B with an edge to it, with the very thing that makes you rich. And now this is kind of hard to pigeonhole into any kind of genre. This is just it's just music.
Yeah, and it's an intersection between the talent of the people playing the guitar. You can't just pick up a guitar and play like this. Then the uniqueness. There's a style to the guitar that they're playing, and then the creativity that comes along with this. I mean, they took a song. They clearly heard something in the original versions of the song that they might have been listening to for a long time, and came up with this, and it all mixes together to create something that not everybody can sit down and do, right? I mean, it takes that type of talent and creativity to do this, and the end result for us, the listener, is just something nice to listen to. And you're right, listening to music isn't necessarily going to solve all your problems, but it ain't going to hurt.
Don't hurt.
Yep.
It don't hurt. So in any case, that is the final track on the side, and I think it's I of the Rod Cooder music that I have listened to, and he's got a lot. I have not listened to of Ry Cooder's music, or even most of Ry Cooder's music when you really get down to it. Other than the things that I mentioned are referred to, but he's an important. I think he's an important artist, certainly an important guitarist in the history of pop or rock music. And about his high point, at least in terms of the solo albums he put out, was this album, in my opinion, its first side.
Well, and it's as people are looking to explore some new or different music, something that they haven't heard before, and Ry Cooder is not a big rock and roll star. I think a lot of people have heard of him, but maybe not be familiar with his material. But if you're going to look for something new, I mean, someone that is very highly respected and sought after in the music industry might be someone to pay some attention to. That's certainly Ry Cooder. He's certainly a great guitar player, based on whether you're talking top lists or just the fact that he's been in demand. So, it's got a lot of arrows pointing to Ry Cooder as someone to check out. And this is a great album and a great side to start with, to do that. And Mike, a great conversation about it as well.
All right. All right. Well, Mark, we'll talk to you next time.